Now it came on. How y'all doing? It's been a while since I've been on this bike. I was trying to push the button to get everything started, and well, it wasn't wanting to work. So I had to stop for a second. And some of y'all know what that is right over there. See those nice little rice paddies? That's a rice field. They don't always grow rice on it. That's why it floods so bad though. Rice fields, rice and cane. Sugarland's famous for cane. Imperial sugar. Over here we got Daggett rice. Plenty of mud bugs. You ain't lived till you've seen somebody suck the head on a mud bug. But how are y'all doing? It's not good to let a motorcycle sit. And this one's sat too long. I still need a tire. Still got a little tread on it. Did get the battery. I don't know if you've seen the video by the time you've seen this or I've released it. I know right now I have it on Patreon. So I just did the install. Wasn't that detailed. It was more just, you know, hey, I'm putting a battery in my bike and I'm filming it. It's not something that really needs a whole hell of a lot of detail. Yeah. Hey, there's some tabs in here. You might want a long flathead screwdriver to get to. Everything's going to be in the way. You got to move it out of the way. It's not extremely complicated. I think most of the people who watch my channel can, hold on. I think most of y'all can change a battery in a motorcycle and don't need me telling you how to do it. Although there might be somebody looking up the video, how to install the battery in my Lowrider ST. And I hope that helps them. But I think that's kind of like a Chilton or Haynes manual. Excellent tool if you already kind of know what you're doing, you know? It's got all your torque specs and all that stuff in there. Hey, you got a new model or this, and you can look up a wiring diagram, all kinds of crap. If you already know how to work on shit, they are an excellent tool. If you don't know how to work on shit already, well, you're about to learn, you know? Probably by paycheck. Well, wasn't that part? Let's go back through here. Wasn't that part? They've even got a diagnostic section in there. It's pretty decent. It's not going to tell you everything, but gives you kind of a good basic idea of shit. And I guarantee you most people don't look at that. Most people look at the wiring diagram and like, what the hell is this? You know? But then again too, I don't know how kids are nowadays. I know I got some old Chiltons. I think I got a, well, I've got an old hardback Chilton somewhere. One I think is Chrysler. Well, I got one or two. I think I got one on an International Scout. You know, real vehicles. You know, real cars and trucks and stuff. But yeah, this new thing they got, that's not a fucking Bronco. That's not a Jeep pickup. That's not a Volkswagen Bug. I don't give a fuck what name they put on it. It's not. I mean, they're not bad vehicles, but I mean, I've got a picture in my head of what that vehicle is, and that is not it. You know? It just is. But a lot of people my age can remember being 16 years old and trying to fix that beat up pickup or that beat up car in the driveway, So you can take it out Saturday, or you can get to work, you know, 18, 19 years old, and you got to be at work tomorrow, so you're working on it all night. And that's really how you learn to work on shit. I mean, I took diesel mechanics. Okay, I learned what a nut splitter was. There's just, I don't know, the classes and everything. I've had classes, I wouldn't say they're useless, but you know, it ain't what people think it is. No, granted, they had motors for us to tear apart and put back together, and I guess nobody's ever done that before. That's a great learning experience for them. But you don't really get your diagnostics and stuff doing that. The same as, like, what's his name, the fat electrician was talking about. These people going to school to be an electrician, and they get out there and they still got to serve their apprenticeship, and they think they're a master electrician. You ain't shit. You don't know shit yet, because there's just, that school can't give you experience, you know. It's the same in trucking too. I used to make my students back in everywhere. I'd pull them out of the bunk. Here, back in. They just got to sleep. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. They complain. I'm like, what do you think's going to happen when they knock on your door and say, put it in door 3 here in a couple of weeks? I put it in the fucking door. You know? And, you know, I'm there to help. There's a certain point I stopped helping. I just told them to stop, and you better fucking stop and get out and take a look at what you're doing. You know, and I'll help you at that point if you can't figure it out. But I don't think anyone with under 5 years experience has any business training someone or being in a lease purchase program or any of that shit. And they end up making trainers out. They barely got their fucking feet wet, you know. They're not even seasoned or anything yet, and it's gonna take you a few years to get seasoned. You know, they ain't got the common sense to drop their landing gear before they slide their fifth wheel, get the weight off of it. You got a student and a trainer slamming it back and forth. You know, trainer's got maybe a year's experience, suckered into a lease truck. You know, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, just blind leading the blind. And because neither one of them has something that a school cannot teach you, and that is experience. I think trucking should be kind of like a lot of the trades, where it's like an apprenticeship. And I've heard that argument before from other people. Trucking should be an apprenticeship where you work under somebody else's license or something for a year or two. You know, I'm not getting any way, buddy. I know what you're doing. Get on with that Peterbilt. You know what you're doing. I used to pull a lowboy long time ago. I always like a Peter car. Anyways, anything else, there's no substitute for experience, and there's no substitute for actually doing the job. And when you're doing the job, you're going to need to work under somebody else who actually knows what the fuck they're doing, you know? Hadn't been on this bike in a while. I have my knees up in the air here. I think I can scooch back a little bit. Yeah, that's better. I still may put forwards on this thing. I don't know. I debate it. And I've got new boots on. I'm Harley poor though. They're not new boots. They're from the Goodwill. Amy found them. Said, "Hey, you like these?" I'm like, yeah, get them. They're steel-toed boots. They're in good shape. Yes, get them. These boots would have cost $100 and something. Instead, they cost like $20 at Goodwill. Because I got a Harley and I can't afford shit. That's my own damn fault. Don't blame other people or shit on your own fucking stupidity. Yeah, that's another thing. Experience. You can't replace it. You know? There's a reason that our species lives beyond breeding years when most species die. There's a few other animals, usually of higher intelligence, that do the same thing. A few of the other apes, I think maybe elephants or something. But we all live long enough that our last kids, our lifespan is long enough for them to be adults. And I know there's this myth about they only live 20, 30 years old. Not really. Because when you take into account those averages, they're averaging the extremely high infant and childhood mortality rate that our species has had until very, very recently. And if you live, you know, kind of like people in the Amazon rainforest who have the healthiest immune systems of anybody on Earth except for maybe the Congo. If you live to adulthood, you've been exposed to every disease and pathogen and everything else. You've probably got worms and everything, but you have the strongest immune system on Earth. You know? You're not necessarily going to die when you're 30. Plenty of them people live to be old if they don't get hurt and die. You know, look how many of our founding fathers and shit were 70, 80, 90 years old. Keep going back through history. A lot of people living that old. So if you survived your childhood, there's a good chance of you having basically about the same lifespan you have today. Except now, most of our kids live. But the point to that being, the reason that we live that long is to pass on the experience and the wisdom to our offspring. It's also the theory of why women live longer than men, because they have some more vital information than men do. Apparently we're good for something. What the fuck? You know? But yeah, experience. There's no teacher that can replace it. You know? Some people it takes more experience than others. You know, I know the joke about, you know, oh, when we were kids we touched a hot stove and we didn't do that again. Bullshit. A lot of us did that shit again. You know? And there's a lot of us who took that cigarette lighter out of the car and we had to stick our finger on it. We'd already touched the stove. We knew what hot was. You know? We still had to try it. So some people take a little more experience than others to catch on. Like, ow, that hurt. Ow, that hurt. Ow, that hurt. You know? What's that? If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough. Something like that. I think we all think we're smarter than we are. That perspective of the world I live in is not the world you live in. We all have our version of reality. But there are some basic truths that cross all of it. I mean, you see the world differently than anybody else does. I think that's kind of a beauty in it. Everybody has their own little, for lack of a better phrase, like this dimension that they live in, and everybody else is a character in it, kind of. And they have a completely different way of looking at the world than the person beside them, than their sibling. You know, it may be even similar, but it's got their own unique perspective. their own experiences to filter the information that they're taking in. And out of that, the answers and conclusions can end up in wildly different places, and you kind of get that color of life. I think that's a benefit. It's a great advantage that our species has. You know, has allowed us to invent a whole lot of shit. You know, try new foods, try new this. Imagine the first people to eat mushrooms. How hungry did they have to be? But honestly, that might have been one of our first foods. You know, we were probably eating mushrooms long before, like, if you look like the scientific view, you know, rather than the biblical view. You know, okay, if we evolved and all that. And no, they're not saying we descended from apes. I hear people say that all the time. No scientist has ever fucking said that we descended from apes. They said that we are apes. We're one of the great apes. You know? But, oh, it's getting hot in here. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. I nearly did that the other day. I was in my pickup. Because I was getting burned by acid that I got on me at work. But where were we? I don't know. Apes and stupidity. Are we the smartest? Really? Chimpanzee looks pretty happy up in a tree. I don't know. We're also social creatures. No matter how antisocial you are, you know. Even if you don't want to be around anyone, you don't want to be hurt anymore, you still crave that not being hurt and that affection. We need that. I think that's a problem we're going to have with this generation coming up. I mean, they're social online, but they don't get that interpersonal feedback kind of thing, one to the other. They can, you know, talk shit playing Call of Duty, but they can't talk to the fucking cashier. Okay, my GoPro shut off. Lovely. I got my knees up in my chest, man. Takes a second to get used to this bike and the new boots. I'm like, ah! The other bike's smaller, but my feet are out here. See how far that leg goes out there? Yeah, I'm not short. I'm not like extremely tall either. I'm barely tall, you know. It's not like I'm a giant. So what am I gonna do? What were we talking about? I think something towards human stupidity. Yeah, humans. Oh, evolution. Hell, I lost the track of what I was talking about. I've had head injuries, my friend. I've had plenty of them. And there are cows. Look at them. Look at all the cows. Look at the baby cows. I always like looking at the calves. And there's some more over there. I never want to live anywhere that I cannot see cows. It does something for the spirit, something for the soul. I got a field over there. Looks like somebody done run a disc and a hara across it. There's some more cows. If you don't know what a hara is, look it up. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I can tell you what it is, but that's no fun. I do know a lady that got messed up pretty bad. We had old equipment growing up because we had to start on Grandpa's old shit. So you're on like a 1938 model Minneapolis Moline, and you're pulling a plow that you got to pull with a rope. Some of the old discs and stuff like that had a seat on them and levers. And this lady, she got hurt like back in, I think, the 50s. And she fell off that seat and the disc went over the top of her. She had some pretty bad scars. She was a nice old lady though. You know. Seen a lot of injuries. I left a company that paid damn good because too many people were getting hurt. You know? Way too many people were getting hurt. I think Joe the Mountain Jedi is on right now. That might have been why my phone beeped a minute ago. Probably was. I'll turn him on when I get home. Well, I'm not going to turn him on. He's got a wife for that. But I'll turn his show on. Yeah, she might get offended. He might not even be into that. Probably ain't. I got a wife. She'd be offended. I'm sorry. My brain is weird. It goes into weird places. Like that weird linguistic shit. Hey, that can be a, what do you call it? Double entendre, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, my brain does that. If you haven't seen his channel though, it's pretty fucking cool. Like, if you like taking apart carburetors and understanding how they work, and, you know, going through electrical systems and making parts for vehicles, you know, mainly bikes in his case, you know, that's Joe the Mountain Jedi. Should just put the @ symbol and for whatever the fuck that symbol is you put before somebody's name looking them up, and put Joe the Mountain Jedi, all one word, you'll find him. Very informative show. I like that. Doesn't really get into politics or anything, at least haven't really heard much of that on there, unless you want to talk about the politics of Harley versus Kawasaki or Honda. You know, so that's a plus. We've all got our political sides, and most y'all listen to my channel have a pretty good idea what directions I lean. You know, no need to talk about that shit all the time. I think it's driving the country insane. Oh, put my feet up here. See how that feels. That feels much better. I can steer with those. Like, you can lean back. I'm not going to do it right now. Let go of the handlebars, and you can push on those bars there, and you can like steer the bike going down the road. I was doing that coming back from the camp out. I was leaning back on my pack. I'm stretching. I'm just steering with my feet. I don't think I'm going to make the camp out this year. There's a small chance. I just don't think it's going to happen, because to go, I would need to take this motorcycle. For the amount of money it would take to rig out the Fat Bob, I could have already had this one ready. All I need is a tire and an oil change. But I got so much shit that honestly my personal life is more important. Catching my bills and shit up. And I got a chance to do that. And that's going to take priority over anything else. You got to handle your business, you know. And I've had quite a few setbacks and some other personal stuff. My wife going back to school to up her degree, and she graduated a few months ago, and now she's going back again, taking like one more class. And I'm like, fuck. But she's still working, you know, but it's still what it is. They canceled my physical because the government went through and they gave us all like a month to get a new physical because of the doctor my boss sent me to take my physical. And they didn't even do anything wrong. They were set up. I did a video on that one. And that costs money, taking off to do all that kind of shit. And, I mean, they literally set him up. They're reading the eye chart and the guy's mumbling this unintelligible shit that is on recording, and the lady asked him, you know, to repeat himself because she couldn't understand him. They're not allowed to do that because it can be taken as coaching. Okay. And on their color vision, they were using just the standard red and green, and you have to add yellow in there. It has to be red, yellow, and green, not just the red and green that's on the eye chart. So they corrected. That's all the problem was, and they made this big deal about, oh, people are getting their physicals there that shouldn't pass or shouldn't do, like they're doing something, you know, that's wrong. No. They got set up probably by somebody that failed. Everything they're doing is above board. They weren't passing people that weren't supposed to pass. But everybody wants to jump on that bandwagon. Like, ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, like that kid that had that slightly below average intelligence when you were in elementary school. And if you saw something weird or taboo or whatever, he'd be like pointing at it and going, ooh, 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 look, look, look. You know, that kid? Y'all remember him. I think we beat the fuck out of him. That's a different story. But, maybe society as a whole. I think George Carlin was right. George Carlin was right about so much shit. But, yeah, I don't believe in hate speech. I believe speech can be hateful, but I don't believe in hate speech. I believe in freedom of speech. But, protect the speech that offends you the most, or freedom of speech does not exist. That's what I believe. Here is the school. I don't have any of them in school no more. It's sad. I mean, it's good, but it's sad. I miss when they were babies. But no, George Carlin was right when he said, think about how stupid the average person is. Now remember, half of them are even stupider than that. I'm starting to think that people were more intelligent when he made that assessment of society. Down the zipper we go. Seriously, I think when George Carlin made that assessment of society, people were smarter. People are getting stupid. If they can't find their way to the grocery store, they've been going to their whole fucking life without a GPS. You can't remember your significant other's phone number. I mean, you might, but most people can't. They barely remember their own phone number. Well, we used to have a Rolodex of phone numbers by memory. It wasn't that long ago. If I didn't remember your phone number, all I had to do was pick up a phone and start dialing it. And I would remember your phone number. We're losing a part of ourselves. It's like, I like books, like actual books. I don't like that internet bullshit. Download a book. I want a piece. I want like a whole bunch of pieces of paper together and bound. There's something about reading. There's something about actually writing with your hand, not typing on a computer, writing it out, that sticks it in your brain. I got in trouble a lot in the 2nd grade. Teacher didn't like me, you know. And I think I got to go to recess twice that year. The rest of the year, I had to sit out in front of the class, or during recess. And I had to copy the dictionary. I ended up with a fairly high vocabulary. I can thank her for that. That was a result of most of my family is Catholic. I grew up in the Southern Baptist portion of it, though, which is like my grandfather, my mother's father's little group. There's a couple Pentecostals, and I got an aunt that's a Jehovah's Witness. But they sent me to a Lutheran school with King James Bible. And that's how I learned how to read. I could read long before I was in school. Got to sit up at night reading the Bible to my grandfather. So I'm like 3 years old, and I'm reading basically Shakespeare's language, which is the same as the King James. Now, there are little differences in the Bibles there. They didn't like that too much. And I'm a kid, you know, Grandpa was my hero. So, what the hell. In many ways, he still is. I wish he was still here. That's who I get playing the guitar from. You know, my channel name is Chasing Ghosts. It's kind of what it's about. My biological father rode Harleys. He was in biker. Well, he was in a club that I'm not going to name on here. You know, my grandfather played guitar. My stepfather drove a truck. All my uncles drove trucks and stuff too, and went back and forth, oil field and construction and all that shit. I'm like just watching for gravel. But you're kind of chasing those ghosts, those memories, those people in a lot of ways. They're still here. There's a little part of them in you. All those people you had in your life that meant so much. There's a little piece of them there in you. That ghost is still with you. But anyways, we'll catch up later. I keep talking like that, I'm going to start crying. So, thank you so much for watching. You're all awesome. Adios, vaya con dia, sayonara, hasta la vista, nashla, ciao, deuces, yo. I'll catch you later.